I started to wear my suit, but it occurred to me, I don't own a suit. You think I look a little rough around the edges. John the Baptist looked rougher. Did he look pretty rough? The Lord works in mysterious ways. I never got around to buying a suit, nor a ring or a watch, and certainly not a cell phone. Are you kidding? Now, I own some computers, but I've never turned one on. I just walked by and looked at one time. Someone says, Robertson, you don't know what you're missing. Yeah, I do. You understand what I'm saying? I know exactly what I'm missing. These call ducks. That's about 30 years of work. This costs men. So I go to and fro across the United States. So I was down in the Superdome when this started. Oh, I was a duck call builder. They said, Mr. Robertson, you'll be giving your speech over that big sign, that big banner says Budweiser, King of Beer. I said, okay. So I go over there and I go through the duck calls. All New Orleans, Louisiana. They drinking beer, you know, hey. So I go through the duck calls and I looked out there at that large crowd and I thought, if it were the Apostle Paul, he'd have to lay one down. This kind of crowd. So I reached in my satchel and I brought out my Bible. I said, ladies and gentlemen, while I'm here, I think I'm going to preach a little sermon because based on my observation of the United States of America, I think you need one. Now, folks, there was a hush fell over that crowd. It got quiet. And some of them were saying, what are you, something about a sermon? And I figured, I had nothing to lose. And they, my neighbor, had everything to gain. So I withheld nothing. This is one of these point blank, both barrels, let her rip. And let the chips fall where they may, and let the Almighty sort them out later. People come running up out of the audience when all the smoke cleared, and they said, Mr. Robertson, that took some gall. I said, I owed them that. I loved them enough. I owed them. They said, would you come to our church and do that same thing? I said, well, call Miss Kay. There's Miss Kay. I said, call her up. Might work out something. Brothers, that went nationwide so fast. One end to the other. East to west, north to south. Every kind of church known to man. Go in the world and preach the gospel to all creation. Right? Make disciples of all nations. Love God and love your neighbor. Two greatest commands I can give you are those two. How would I ever convince anyone I loved them if I didn't tell them the way off planet Earth alive? Think about it. Well, I was around them for a long time, but I never got around to tell them how they could leave planet Earth alive. Are you crazy? You got to do it. So the phone rings. Hello, Duck Commander. I usually don't answer it, but I did then, years ago. Now I'm hard to reach. Hello, Duck Commander. Need to order a duck call. Fellow on the other end of the line. He wants to order a duck call. In the process of this gentleman ordering a duck call, he used the Lord's name in vain about 5 times. And I'm listening to him, I'm thinking, I mean, the man is just ordering a duck call. I mean, come on. Well, about the fifth or sixth time, I'm getting his information, his name. I said, I better get his credit card number first before I ask him what I'm going to ask him. I said, let me ask you something. He blurted out another. I said, let me ask you something. Why would you curse the only one who can save you from death? And there was silence. I said, you still there? He said, yeah, I'm here, Hoss. You got my duck call order? I said, I got it. Boom! He hangs it up. I said, well, 10 minutes goes by. Ring. Hello, Duck Commander. He said, hey, it's me again. I said, well, what about it? Why would you curse the only one who could save you from death? That's the question on the table. He said, I've never thought about that. I said, well, you're going 6 feet deep one of these days, and you cannot escape it without divine intervention, I don't think, unless you know something I don't. I said, you know what you ought to do? I said, where are you from here? Alabama. I said, get in your rig, drive over here, I'll tell you a story, and I'm going to bet you won't curse God anymore. He said, well, I might do that, Hoss. I said, well, you ought to. Boom. Then I hang it up. A week goes by. Knock on the door. Come on in. This fellow steps in the door. He said, you know who I am? I said, I don't believe I do. He had his buddy with him. He said, I'm that fellow that was cursing God. I said, so you did come. He said, I want to know why I shouldn't curse God. I said, well, you have come to the right place. Come on in here. I sat down on my living room floor, he and his friend, and I told them the good news about Jesus, and they bawled like little boys. And I walked them down on the Washita River, and I baptized them into Christ. And I said, you boys want some dry clothes before you go back to Alabama? They said, no, sir. We're in good shape. They jumped back in that truck wet. On up the road. 17 years later, Kay said, there's some church over in Alabama field wants you to come by there. It's Decatur, Alabama. I think I can work your schedule. And I said, go ahead and work it in. So I go over there to Decatur, Alabama. We roll in there. The preacher said, come on, have a little meal before you speak, Mr. Robertson. All right. So we go up there, we eat a little meal. Some fellow walks up. He said, Phil, do you remember a fellow named? He called his name. I said, I don't think I do. He said, he was the fellow that was cursing God on the telephone, and you challenged him about it, and you converted him over it. I said, I remember that cat. He said, he's one of the leaders of this church now. I said, really? He said, oh, what are you talking about? He's talking about turn around. He said, he came back over here and chewed us all out because we never told him the good news about Jesus. He had to call some cat with whiskers over as some duck call maker to challenge him on it. Some Cajun pulled up out there one day in the parking lot in my yard, parking lot in my yard. I looked out there, I said, Kay, what's that truck doing in the yard? She said, I don't know. I walk out there, and it's just sitting there. I walked over, and I looked over in the truck, and the fellow slumped over in the seat. I said, hey, what do you need? He said, I come up here to get some duck calls. He walks in there. I said, Jace will be in there a little bit, my son. He goes in there working about duck calls. Jace walked in there and said, Dad, you got your Bible on you? I said, yeah. I said, you got one cranked up out there? He said, I've never heard such a filthy mouth in my life from this fellow. I said, well, Jace, you break out that Bible, you either send them up the road or you convert them. But either way will do. Jace starts about 9 o'clock in the morning. At 5 o'clock, he got off from work. I took over the night shift. I just picked it up where Jace left it off. All day and half the night. About 11:30, 12 o'clock, I walk him down the river, baptize him. He goes back home to South Louisiana. He brings his loving wife up. We tell her the good news about Jesus. They had a Catholic background, and she came to Jesus. And then they went back and came back. They brought their dad back, and we told him the good news about Jesus, and he came to Jesus. You say, what's the point of the two stories? You drive up in my yard, and you start using the Lord's name in vain. Or you call me up on the telephone, and you start using the Lord's name in vain. You got a gospel sermon coming. that quick. It breaks it up every time, and many are won. We went to Union, Tennessee last week, Miss Kay and I. We converted the pilot who was driving the plane. I figured he needed it, being a pilot. He said, man, I'm taking you up here just what are you going to do? You going to speak? Yeah. I said, yeah, I'm going to speak. You know, yeah, well, was that right? Yeah. Give him a little light sermon, so the conversation just turned around. You take somebody duck hunting, you religious? Well, not really. I said, boy, do we have a story for you. Knock the decoys out of the way, down in that 32, 33 degree water. They come up just spewing cold water. I don't know whether they're happy, but they're making a lot of racket when they come out. Could be the cold water, could be that they know they're saved. It's impossible to rightly govern the world without God and the Bible. George Washington, first president of the United States. You cannot govern the world without God and the Bible. That's our first president. The Bible is the rock the republic rests on. Andrew Jackson, 7th president of the United States. The republic will stand or fall based on how its citizens view the Bible. That's what he was saying, both of them. Let's see. We've staked the whole future of our new nation not on the power of government, far from it. We've staked the future of all of our political constitutions upon the ability of each of ourselves to govern ourselves according to the moral principles of the 10 Commandments. James Madison, I think he was number 4. Based on the moral principles of the 10 Commandments. We owe these truths to be self-evident. Your declaration and mine says, all men are created equal. I know where he stood, Thomas Jefferson. He believed the Genesis account, like those other fellows. We've been endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We didn't listen to them. United States did not listen to them. The Bible. So the atheist comes into the courthouse in Alabama. Judge Roy Moore had put those 10 Commandments written in stone in the main foyer there, where you come into the courthouse. He knew what these men had said. Judge Moore did. So the atheist walks in there and says, it's a violation of my rights. I don't even believe in God, therefore I don't want taxpayer dollars putting out a code, a conduct, when I have to walk by and look at it. I want them out of there. And you know what they did, El Dorado? They hauled them away. Let's see. They hauled the 10 Commandments out of the courthouse, irregardless of what the founders of their country had said. You said, what in the world has happened to us? Number 5, children, honor your father and mother. I've noticed when children dishonor their father and mother, yours or anybody else's, and they drive too fast, and they get drunk, and they smoke dope, and they tear up people's property. When they catch them, the first place they go is the courthouse. 6, don't murder. You want to try that one on, El Dorado? Violate that commandment number 6? When they catch you, you know where you're going? You're going to the courthouse before it's over. Number 7, don't commit adultery. Your little wife catches you, gentlemen, committing adultery. There's a good possibility there could be a court date. Right? Happens about half the time in the United States. And the children cry, and the lawyers make a lot of money. And it's all divided up in the courthouse. Don't steal. You burglarize someone's home. You rob a bank. You defraud somebody. They catch you. Courthouse. That's where you're going. Don't doubt it. Don't lie. I always say this because it brings it home. Ask Martha Stewart what happens when you tell a little lie. Where'd they take her? Where did they take her? Courthouse. That's where they settle it when you tell a little lie. Just one of the 10 Commandments. And last, don't covet. If you spend more than you have, if you want more than you need, if you're not careful, the bill collectors start calling, and they have something they call bankruptcy proceedings, and yes, it's done at the courthouse. So listen, El Dorado. If you're going to end up at the courthouse anyway for violating the 10 Commandments, that might be a pretty good place to put them. What do you think? What, we don't want a murderer as he's going into the courtroom to find out how many years we're going to give him? We don't want him seeing the 10 Commandments, of which one says, don't murder. They rape and kidnap our children. They rob people on the street. So we finally catch them. And they're in there. Well, we don't want them seeing. Don't murder. Don't steal. So what are we going to replace them with?